Have you ever met someone and felt that impossible thing? Like your soul recognized them before your mind could explain it? The connection is instant. Conversation flows like water. Even the silence feels safe. For the first time in a long time, you feel seen, and then reality slams the door. Maybe they're married, maybe they live 1,000 miles away, maybe one of you is ready for commitment while the other is still bleeding from old wounds. The rational mind says, walk away, be logical, protect yourself. But something deeper doesn't listen, because even when you try to move on, the feeling stays. It lingers like a pulse under the skin, undeniably real, even when logic says it shouldn't. Carl Jung discovered something that can completely change the way you understand wrong timing, and I'm warning you, what you're about to hear might reframe your entire love history. According to depth psychology, the wrong time might not be a mistake, it might be a psychological design. In this video, you'll learn 5 signs the separation isn't random, it's your psyche forcing an evolution. And it starts with how you're measuring time. The ancient Greeks had 2 words for it, and they explain the war inside your chest right now. The first is Kronos, clock time, the time that stares back at you from birthdays, deadlines, and other people's expectations. It's the pressure that says you should be married by now, healed by now, over it by now. And when you look at this connection through Kronos, it feels like a tragedy. I found them too late. I missed my chance. But there's another kind of time. Kairos. Not the time on your phone, the time in your soul. Kairos is about ripeness, timing that can't be forced, only reached. And in Kairos, you're not late, you're simply not ready yet. Jung believed the psyche is always moving toward one goal, wholeness. He called it individuation, the slow, painful process of becoming who you actually are beneath your masks, your coping, your survival strategies. So here's the truth most people can't accept. If you met them earlier, you might not have recognized them. You would have mistaken depth for danger. And if you force it now, while the old wounds are still running the show, you might destroy what you're trying to save. Sometimes the distance isn't rejection, it's protection, until you can actually hold what you're asking for. Sign number 1 is the one that tricks people the hardest, because it feels like love, but it's actually a mirror. Jung had a word for this, projection. And projection doesn't mean the connection is fake. It means your psyche is doing what it always does when it encounters something powerful. It throws a spotlight on it and loads it with meaning. Sometimes the person who feels most meant for you is actually holding a missing piece of your psyche. That's why the pull feels irrational. It's not just attraction, it's recognition. Like your unconscious is saying, there it is. The part of me I've been looking for. Maybe they carry a kind of courage you've suppressed your whole life. Maybe they have a softness, a warmth, an emotional honesty that you learned to shut down just to survive. Or maybe it's artistry, confidence, devotion, calm, whatever it is. It lights up something inside you that has been dormant for years. This is what Jung would call the golden shadow, not the ugly parts you hide, but the beautiful parts you abandoned. And here's where the wrong timing suddenly makes sense, because if you had them right now, there's a risk you wouldn't love them, you would use them. Not out of malice, out of hunger. You'd turn the relationship into a power source. You'd feed on their light instead of igniting your own. You'd make them responsible for your wholeness. And that isn't love, that's dependency dressed up as destiny. The universe waits until 2 complete individuals can meet, not 2 halves trying to make a whole. So the distance becomes a kind of psychological mercy. It forces you to take back what you've projected onto them. It's your psyche saying, don't just admire that quality in them, build it in yourself. Here's your question. Be brutally honest. What quality do they represent that you've been starving in yourself? What do they embody that your life has been missing? Because the moment you can answer that, the obsession starts to transform into growth. But be careful, because once projection gets challenged, once your fantasy collapses and reality refuses to cooperate, it often triggers something even darker. And that's the next sign. Sign number 2. The necessary destruction, dark night of the soul. Here's the truth Jung would not sugarcoat. They didn't enter your life to comfort you. They entered to restructure you. A true soul-level connection doesn't arrive like a lullaby. It arrives like a lightning strike. At first you think you've finally found the answer. But then something strange happens. After you meet them, the life you were living, your routines, your relationships, even your identity, starts to feel wrong. Not imperfect, not needs improvement. Wrong. The relationship you were settling for feels like a lie. The version of you that used to get applause starts to feel like a mask you can't breathe inside anymore. And that's when the dark night begins. This is the part nobody talks about because it doesn't look spiritual on Instagram. It looks like depression. It looks like staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m., wondering why everything that used to work doesn't work anymore. But here's what Jung understood. You're not falling apart because you're broken. You're falling apart because an old ego structure is dying. The psyche can't build a larger life on top of a smaller self. So it does what it must do. It demolishes what no longer fits. And that person becomes the trigger. Not because they're cruel, but because their presence exposes how much of your life has been lived on autopilot. Now listen closely, because this explains the wrong timing. If you could run into the sunset with them right now, if you could use the relationship as a warm escape, you would bypass your own initiation. You would turn them into a drug. You'd avoid the void instead of facing it. And the void is exactly where the new you is trying to be born. So the distance isn't just pain, it's pressure. It's the universe forcing you to sit in the fire until the false self burns off. They didn't break your heart to punish you. They broke it to break open the life that was too small for you. And here's why the attraction feels irrational, almost frighteningly inevitable. Sign number 3, Thema and Animus connection. Jung taught that we don't just fall for a person, but we fall for an archetype. They activate inside us because beneath your preferences, beneath your type, beneath your conscious standards, you carry an inner counterpart. In a man, Jung called it the Anima, the inner feminine image. In a woman, he called it the Animus, the inner masculine image. They're living patterns in the psyche, shaped by your earliest bonds, your deepest wounds, your unmet needs, and your hidden potential. That's why it feels like familiarity on steroids, like you've known them forever, like you're not meeting a stranger, you're meeting something you've been carrying your whole life. But here's the twist that most people miss. The purpose of this meeting isn't only romance, it's internal marriage. Jung would say the deepest form of love isn't just external union, it's an internal marriage, the reconciliation of what's been split inside you. This person is not just here to be your partner. In many cases, they're here to activate the parts of you that you've been waiting for someone else to bring to life. The confidence, the tenderness, the groundedness, the strength, the emotional intelligence, the ability to lead your own life. And if you're waiting for them to save you, heal you, validate you, life often keeps you apart until you can hold yourself. Because if the anima or animus stays projected outward, you become dependent. You turn them into your medicine, and medicine can become addiction when you don't learn to produce it from within. So the wrong timing becomes a psychological command. Turn inward. Learn to become your own partner. Learn to embody what you've been begging them to give you. And something strange happens when you do. When you integrate what you're chasing, the desperation fades. You stop reaching, you stop bargaining with the universe, you stop collapsing into fantasy. And paradoxically, reality starts shifting because you're no longer grasping at it with need. And sometimes, when you finally try to let go, something bizarre starts happening. Sign number 4. Synchronicity. The one that makes people feel like they're losing their mind. Because this is what happens when you finally try to be rational. You delete the number. You stop checking their socials. You tell yourself, it's over. I'm moving on. You throw your attention back into work, into routine, into anything that can seal the door. And then the universe doesn't let it close. You get in the car and their obscure favorite song is playing on the radio, like a private message slipped into the air. You walk down a random street and their name is on a billboard. You glance at the clock and it's 11:11, or their birthday, or the exact number that used to follow the two of you around. And the dreams are worse. Not vague, not symbolic, hyper-real. You wake up with the emotional residue still on your skin, like they were just there. And sometimes the next day, you feel their presence. Subtle, irrational, but unmistakable. Like your nervous system is picking up a frequency it can't explain. Synchronicity is when events are connected not by cause, but by meaning. The outer world and the inner world line up in a way that feels orchestrated, like two clocks that shouldn't match, suddenly striking the same hour. And here's what matters. The function of synchronicity is not to make you spiral. It's your unconscious reminding you of something simple and unsettling. In Kronos, you're separated. But in deeper time, something is still active. Something is still unfolding beneath the surface of what you can control. These moments are not instructions to chase. They are not permission to abandon your life and run after a feeling. They are invitations to pay attention, to ask, what is this connection waking up in me? What is it demanding I face? What part of me is trying to come alive through this? Because synchronicity isn't about forcing a reunion. It's about recognizing that your psyche is moving, even when the relationship isn't. And if you can stay with that, if you can hold the mystery without gripping it, you might reach the final sign, but the final sign is the one almost nobody reaches because it requires the death of need. At first, it's eros. You want them, you crave them, you replay every conversation like it's a sacred text. You feel withdrawals when they're not there. You suffer because you can't have them. And the mind turns that suffering into a desperate negotiation with reality. If I become better, maybe they'll come back. If I hold on hard enough, maybe I can bend fate. This is the stage where love doesn't feel like love. It feels like hunger wearing a halo. And Jung would say that hunger isn't proof of destiny. It's proof of attachment, the ego trying to secure what makes it feel alive. But here's the alchemy. Over time, if you actually do the inner work, if you integrate the shadow, reclaim the projection, build your own life, and stop using this connection as an excuse to abandon yourself, something almost miraculous begins to happen. The pain starts to change shape. It doesn't disappear overnight. It doesn't get fixed, but it softens, it matures, it becomes less like a wound and more like a teacher. And then comes the shift line. The moment your psyche crosses a threshold, you stop saying, "Why aren't you here?" and you start saying, "Thank you for existing." You realize the most sacred part of the connection was never about possession. It was about awakening. It was about becoming. It was about the way they activated your soul, even from a distance. This is where eros evolves into something older and higher, what the Greeks called agape. Love without demands. Love that doesn't require an outcome to justify its existence. You love them enough to let them live, even without you. You stop turning them into a solution for your unfinished childhood. You stop making them the proof that you're worthy, and you begin to bless them. Not because you've given up, but because you've finally stopped trying to control what was never meant to be controlled. That's when the energy shifts, not because you manifested them, not because you played a strategy, but because you're no longer forcing fate with hunger. You're no longer gripping the universe by the throat and demanding it give you the ending you want. You're finally meeting life from wholeness instead of lack. And whether they return or not, something in you has already completed the real union. Because the divine union Jung points to isn't just two bodies coming together, it's the union of opposites inside you. It's the moment you become so internally complete that love is no longer a chase, it's a state. And from that state, you don't just attract a person, you attract a life that matches who you've become. If you recognize these signs, let's name what that means, clearly. You're not the victim of a cosmic joke. You're in an initiation. Because the real question isn't, will they come back? The real question is, who are you becoming while they're gone? Don't put your life on hold. Don't leave an empty seat at your table for a ghost. Jungian psychology isn't about passive hoping. It's about active participation in your own evolution. What you do next matters, not because it guarantees an outcome, but because it determines what kind of person you'll be when the next chapter arrives. So this is active waiting. It looks like building your life in ways you've been postponing. Not staying busy, building something real, stability, health, a home inside yourself. It looks like pursuing your passions, the parts of you that went quiet while you were chasing love like oxygen, the art, the mission, the work that makes you feel alive again. It looks like healing childhood wounds, because this kind of connection doesn't just trigger romance, it triggers old attachment pain, abandonment, unworthiness, the need to earn love. This is where you stop repeating the same story. And above all, it looks like becoming the person you keep trying to find in someone else. Because here's the truth. If it's truly destiny, it returns in a healthier form when it can actually be held. And if it doesn't, you still win. You still end up whole. Not because you got the ending you wanted, but because you became the kind of person who no longer needs a specific ending to feel complete. Before you leave, let me say this in the clearest way possible. Trust the timing, not because it's comfortable, not because it makes sense, and not because it protects you from pain, but because your psyche is shaping you into someone who can finally hold what you once asked for from a place of need. Some connections don't come to stay, they come to awaken, they come to initiate you into a deeper version of yourself. And if this message found you right now, it's not random. So tell me in the comments, where are you in this process? Are you still in the dark night, where everything feels uncertain and unfinished? Or have the synchronicities already started showing up, quietly reminding you that something deeper is unfolding? And if you're ready to stop fighting the process, you're ready to loosen your grip and let life move you instead of dragging it, comment the words, "I trust," not for me, for you. Because saying it out loud is sometimes the first act of surrender. If this video helped you feel less alone in something you couldn't explain, please like it. It helps this reach the people who are silently carrying the same questions. And if you want to keep exploring the deeper layers of the psyche where love, meaning, and transformation actually begin, subscribe and walk this path with us.